What does this do?
This does this. Today I'm going to show you how to add punching in your room in Rec Room. So here we have my lovely sort of kind of clubhouse. Let me make it daytime. And we're going to add the punching circuits to this wall over here. So the main way that we're going to achieve this today is with a spherecast. Now a spherecast is very similar to a raycast, but instead of shooting one single invisible beam, it's going to shoot an entire sphere in that direction, but we're gonna make the distance so small that it basically encases our fist. So whenever the area around our fist detects somebody, it's gonna apply velocity to them. By the way, if you don't want to mess around with the circuits and you just want to add punching to your room, I have an invention for you. It's called the RCL punching system. Get that on the Invention store, pop it in your room, and you can start punching your friends. So let's start off by doing all the circuits for the left hand, and then we'll work on the right hand, and then we'll do bug fixes. Let's start off by bringing our spherecast over here. So now that we've got our spherecast in place, let's start filling out all the inputs over here. Our starting position is going to be where our hand is. So we need left hand position. And we'll just leave the target as local player. Our radius is going to be how much room around our fist do we want it to start detecting. After experimenting a little bit, it seems like 0.1 works, but you can use whatever number you'd like. I would suggest keeping it small. So for directions, we're going to use the player left hand finger direction, but ideally, since we're going to keep it so close to our hand anyway, I don't think it particularly matters as long as you put a vector in here. So max distance, you can't keep it as 0, unfortunately. That would be ideal. So I would suggest doing a small number. I'm just going to do 0.1 as well, because that seems to work. So I'm going to show you guys that this is working. If we hover over hit here, it's false because it's not hitting anything. It's not hitting an object or a player. If I bring my hand close to my body, it becomes true, meaning that I am within this sphere around the fist. So we want this circuit to be constantly checking if the sphere around our fist detects a player, and if it does, we want it to add a velocity. So based on that sentence I just said, we need something constantly checking, which means we need an event receiver configured to 30 Hertz. We need it to check if something happened, so we need an if chip, and if that thing does happen, we need to add velocity, which is a
velocity add
chip. So we will go ahead and hook up the 30 Hertz receiver to the if chip, and then hook up this hit bool to the if condition. Remember, if this is true, then add velocity. So now you can actually see every time my hand gets close to me that it's going to try to add a velocity, but we don't have any of this filled out. Also, a quick note here, we're going to configure the spherecast and make it only detect players, so ignore objects. Okay, so your target, that is going to be the player that we hit. For the speed, this is almost going to be like a multiplier for your punch. I would keep it as 1 to start out with. I'm going to put it as 10 because I really like the effect when you hit somebody where they go like flying off. Now for direction, originally I used the finger direction like we did here, but I spoke to Just a Little Kiwi and he told me about a chip I was unaware of that is left hand velocity. So we're actually going to use that for the direction. Alright, so we have punching for our left hand, but we have a bit of a problem. We need to add in a system where it won't let us punch ourselves. To do that, we're going to need an AND chip, a NOT chip, and an equals chip. I keep punching myself, so I'm just going to turn it off for now. So essentially what we're going to do is replace this bool variable with this bool variable. We're going to put the hit bool variable into the top input of the AND chip, the result from the NOT chip to the second input on the AND chip, the output from the equals to the NOT chip, then the player that we hit is going to go into A on the equals chip, and we're going to switch the B to the local player. And actually we can go ahead and rehook this up. So let's say hypothetically that your hand hits yourself. This top hit is going to be true. Both of these have to be true in order for this to be true. Well, these chips we just added are checking, hey, does the player that we hit equal the local player, ourselves essentially? If it does equal ourselves, then this becomes true, which then going in here becomes false. So if we hit something and that player is ourselves, this will be true and this will be false, which means this is false. But if we hit somebody that is not ourselves, this will be true. These two won't be equal, which will then make this false. The not will flip it to true, which means both of these will be true, which means this will be true, and then we can go on and add velocity to the person that we hit. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so now the right hand, super simple. All we need to do is select all of these chips except for the 30 hertz and clone them. Then all we have to do is replace all the left hand chips with right hand chips. Then we just hook up the else on this first if chip to the input of the second if chip. Also, I'm going to organize these a little bit because they're kind of all over the place. Now, there is an issue that we found in testing. Again, just a little Kiwi helped me out with this. Essentially, you would hit and it would hit them multiple times. So essentially, we've got to add in a system that only allows you to hit somebody one time within a certain time period. So the first thing we're going to need to fix this is a float variable, and we want to connect both of our add velocities. And then we want to use a get precise seconds chip. We want to record these precise seconds whenever a punch happens. All right, the game just kicked me out and didn't save any of this, so I had to rebuild it real quick. Everything is the same, it just looks, it's slightly different position. But anyway, so you take your float variable down here and your get precise seconds, and you're gonna clone them up here to in between your 30 hertz receiver and your first if chip. Then you want to get a subtract chip and a greater than or equal. We want to get the difference between the actual time, the actual precise seconds, and when our last hit was recorded. Then we want to take this difference and we want to check to see if that difference is greater than whatever time we want in between our punches. I used 0.5. So that is, you can only punch one person every half second. Then all we need to do is add another if chip here. So if the time is greater than 0.5, then we want you to go ahead and start checking, let the person hit somebody else. Another thing that I want to add, because I think it's funny to be honest, is a little like punch sound effect. So all we need for that is an audio player. I don't want it to be synced. What we want to do is get a punch sound effect. I have one up here already recorded. I'm actually going to give it to you guys for free because I know not everybody can record sound effects easily. And then every time we hit somebody, we want it to play our audio sample. Now is the time for testing.
What does this do?
This does this.
Oh.
Are you flying? If you do just want to look at the circuits, you don't want to get the invention or anything, you can come into this room. It's called use code RCL1. I'll have the circuits set up right here where we built them, so you can take a look at them, take pictures, do what you need to do. We're going to try something a little bit different this week. I'm going to start making an after show. I'm going to call it After Connections. And today we're finding out if I can be a professional boxer. So go check that out there.